Did you know that the word God in the Bible is actually an incorrect translation?
All right, let's see it.
The word God comes from the ancient Hebrew word Elohim. Etymologically, this literally translates to the powerful ones, plural.
So this is mistaken on at least three very basic linguistic levels. First problem is it's the etymological fallacy. It's this notion that words are governed by their etymologies, which they are not. Words mean what they are used by people to mean. So the etymological fallacy is a pretty basic fallacy that any decent linguist looks out for. The second problem is that this etymology for the word Elohim was abandoned almost 70 years ago. The notion that it comes from Ayil, which means rulers or powers or something like that, has not had currency within critical biblical scholarship for decades. In fact, let's take a look at the text that pretty much closed the door on that etymology. So this is a page from Marvin Pope's 1955 book, El in the Ugaritic Text. And he's got a whole chapter on the etymology of El and why none of the proposed etymologies make any sense. And these last two sentences here I've quoted myself in my own book. As far as the word Elu, El, is concerned, it gets us nowhere. The problem is philologically insoluble on the basis of the materials now at our disposal. The word Elu, El, is simply a primitive noun and as such cannot be further analyzed. Ever since this book, I am not aware of any critical scholars who have taken seriously the notion that El derives etymologically from Ayil or any other word associated with power or ruler or anything like that. And the last and the biggest problem is that just because Elohim is grammatically plural does not mean it has to be understood as a reference to plural entities. We have different ways that Hebrew uses plural nouns to refer to singular reference. And even with Elohim itself, we have a more traditional notion of the plural of majesty, which has lots of problems, but is based on the observation that it seems to derive from the abstract plural, which is a feature of Hebrew where you take a singular noun and use the plural to refer to whatever conceptual abstraction is associated with that noun. So El means God, Elohim would mean divinity, the abstraction. And so Joel Burnett published a wonderful book a little over 20 years ago called A Reassessment of Biblical Elohim, where he suggested that rather than this idea of plural majesty, we look at it as a concretized abstract plural. So the word was used in the plural to refer to the abstraction, to divinity, and then that word was used so frequently in reference to individual instantiations of deity that it became reconcretized as a plural word grammatically that could have a singular referent. And this is not the only word that this happens with. It happens across different Semitic languages, and we have examples in the Hebrew Bible as well. So that's the most likely explanation of what's going on. But the easiest way to tell that they're using this grammatically plural word in reference to a singular entity is to just look at the verbs and the pronouns that are being used around it. If it is connected with a singular pronoun or is the subject of a singular verb, it's being used with reference to a singular entity. If the verbs or the pronouns are plural, then it's being used as a plural. The notion that it must always be translated as a plural is linguistically laughable and remarkably naive for folks who claim to be informed about the Hebrew language.
In fact, a lot of key words in the Bible have been incorrectly translated from their ancient Hebrew, according to Mauro Bolino. Mauro has worked as a Bible translator specializing in ancient Hebrew. He works with Paul Wallace, who is a scholar of ancient mythologies and used to be an archdeacon who actually educated other pastors on how to interpret the Bible. Together, they reanalyze and discuss these key words' etymological correct meaning in the Bible.
So I've not been able to track down any actual scholarship produced by either of these individuals or any indication either has any scholarly credentials. What I have been able to track down is a series of publications that indicates they primarily traffic in the notion that human life on Earth was seeded by extraterrestrials. So it sounds like they're just trying to make money off of conspiracy theories.